The volcano did not erupt. That is the first thing to understand. It had already done what volcanoes do. It had collapsed inward, cooled, and gone quiet. What was left was a caldera, a bowl, a natural enclosure with walls rising hundreds of meters on every side, a flat, fertile floor fed by mineral-rich soil, and a single narrow entrance gap where the old crater rim had fractured. From the outside, it looked like a mountain. From the inside, it looked like a world. And since someone 3,000 years ago looked at that bowl and saw not a geological formation, but a blueprint. They moved in, they stayed. And what they built inside the dead volcano's throat became one of the most defensible, most self-sufficient, and most deliberately hidden human settlements in the ancient world. The mountain kept their secret for centuries. The archaeology is keeping parts of it still. To understand what was built, you first need to understand what the volcano left behind when it finished. A caldera forms when a volcanic magma chamber empties during an eruption, and the ground above it collapses into the void. The result is a depression, sometimes circular, sometimes irregular, with steep interior walls made of solidified lava and volcanic rock and a floor that over centuries accumulates deep deposits of volcanic ash. Volcanic ash is extraordinarily fertile. It contains phosphorus, potassium, calcium, and trace minerals that make agriculture in calderas exceptionally productive. Populations living in caldera environments historically produce surplus food. Surplus food historically produces complexity. Complexity historically produces cities. The specific caldera we are examining today sits in what is now the Indonesian archipelago, a region that contains more historically active volcanoes than any comparable area on Earth. The Indonesian island of Flores is home to a collapsed volcanic formation whose interior has been occupied since at least 1000 BC, possibly significantly earlier. The caldera at Kelimutu is the most famous on Flores for its colored crater lakes. But it is a neighboring formation inland whose occupation history is the subject of today's examination. A caldera whose interior dimensions measure approximately 2 kilometers across, with interior walls rising between 200 and 400 meters, and a single entrance corridor on its northeastern face through which a river flows outward. The river is important. The water source inside the caldera is not rain-dependent. It comes from a spring system fed by groundwater percolating through the porous volcanic rock of the caldera walls. The spring produces consistent water regardless of seasonal rainfall. Consistent water plus exceptional agricultural soil plus natural 400-meter defensive walls equals the conditions that would make any ancient military strategist, any ancient agricultural planner, any ancient community leader look at this bowl and make an immediate decision. The entrance corridor is approximately 30 meters wide at its narrowest point. The river occupies roughly half that width. The remainder is a walking path along the river's edge that widens into the caldera interior after approximately 200 meters of passage through the rock walls. Anyone standing at the entrance can see everything coming. Anyone inside can block the entrance with a structure spanning 30 meters, which is exactly what the archaeological evidence suggests they did. The remains of a stone gate structure at the entrance corridor have been documented by Indonesian archaeologists working the site since the 1990s. The gate used the existing rock walls on both sides as anchor points, spanning the walkable portion of the corridor with fitted stone construction. The stones used in the gate structure are not from the caldera interior. They are a harder basaltic variety quarried from the outer slopes of the volcano and carried through the entrance corridor to build the gate that would then seal that same corridor. Someone organized the transportation of heavy construction stone from outside through a narrow river corridor specifically to build a defensive structure at the entrance. This is not casual settlement. This is planned urban defense. Inside the caldera, the floor space of approximately 3 square kilometers was organized, not randomly occupied, organized. The agricultural zone occupied the central floor area where the volcanic soil was deepest and the spring water most accessible. The residential area was built against the interior caldera wall on the northern side, using the wall itself as the back face of structures and building outward and upward into the wall using natural ledges and artificially cut terraces. The result was a multi-level residential construction that integrated the volcanic rock wall into the architecture in a way that modern engineers would recognize now as structurally sophisticated. The wall provided thermal mass, keeping interiors cool during the day and warm at night. The volcanic rock absorbed and released heat on a cycle that functioned as natural temperature regulation. The terracing is the most technically impressive aspect of what was built. Cutting terraces into solidified lava rock requires tools harder than the rock being cut. The volcanic basalt of the caldera interior walls is among the hardest naturally occurring stone in the region. The terrace edges at this site are clean, straight, leveled, cut with a precision that basalt does not yield to without significant technological capability. The tools found at the site include stone adzes, chisels of hardened obsidian, and wooden-handled implements whose handles have not survived but whose stone heads have. Obsidian is volcanic glass. It fractures to an edge sharper than surgical steel. It is also brittle. Cutting terrace steps into basalt wall faces with obsidian tools is slow, skilled work requiring constant replacement of the cutting edge and a workforce organized around the task rather than casually engaged with it. The terrace steps found at the site are consistent in height and depth across their entire length. This is standardized measurement. Someone established a unit of measurement for the terrace dimensions, and the workforce applied it uniformly. A standard unit of measurement requires a planning authority. A planning authority in a caldera settlement 3,000 years ago is a level of social organization that the conventional picture of Bronze Age Indonesia does not comfortably accommodate. The residential structures built on and into the terraces used three materials: volcanic stone for the foundations and lower walls, timber for the upper walls and roof structures, the timber sourced from the dense vegetation that established itself on the caldera floor in the centuries before settlement, and volcanic pumice, the lightweight porous stone produced by the original eruption and found in abundance across the caldera floor as an insulating fill material packed between the inner and outer faces of the thicker walls. Pumice insulation. In a Bronze Age structure, the thermal properties of pumice as an insulating material are well understood by modern construction engineers. The builders inside this caldera understood them empirically 3,000 years ago and incorporated that understanding into their construction method. The agricultural organization of the caldera floor is visible in the archaeology as a series of field boundaries, low stone walls separating cultivation areas, drainage channels cut to direct spring water across the agricultural zone, and storage structures positioned at the field boundaries to minimize transport distance between harvest and storage. The storage structures are the most technically interesting agricultural feature. They are partially subterranean, dug into the volcanic soil to a depth of approximately 1 meter, lined with flat volcanic stone to prevent moisture penetration, and covered with removable stone slabs. The subterranean positioning keeps the interior temperature consistent and lower than the surface. The stone lining prevents the damp volcanic soil from contacting stored grain. The removable slab cover allows access and resealing. This is controlled atmosphere storage. Not sophisticated enough to be called refrigeration. Sophisticated enough to dramatically extend the viable storage period of harvested grain beyond what surface storage in the tropical Indonesian climate would allow. The people inside the volcano were storing food strategically, not consuming everything immediately after harvest, building reserves. Reserves are what allow a community to survive drought, siege, or seasonal shortage. Reserves are what allow a community to grow beyond the size that hand-to-mouth subsistence supports. The caldera community had reserves. The storage infrastructure proves it. The material culture found at the site connects the Caldera community to broader trading networks across the Indonesian archipelago. Pottery styles found in the Caldera match pottery traditions from other islands. Obsidian tools whose raw material has been sourced through geochemical analysis to volcanic formations on islands more than 500 kilometers away. Shell ornaments from species that do not live in the waters around Flores. The people inside the volcano were not isolated. They were connected. Goods were moving in and out through that 30-meter entrance corridor regularly. The Caldera community appears to have been abandoned sometime around the 5th century BC, based on the latest datable material found in the occupation layers. Not destroyed, not burned. The gate structure shows no evidence of violent breach. The storage pits were empty when the site was sealed by natural vegetation regrowth. They left voluntarily. They took what they had stored and left through the same corridor they had entered through and sealed with stone centuries before. Where they went, the archaeology has not yet determined. The communities that emerged on the Flores coastal plain in the centuries following the Caldera abandonment show material culture continuities with the Caldera site. The people did not disappear. They came down from the mountain. They brought their knowledge of stone cutting, thermal insulation, controlled storage, and agricultural organization with them. And they built differently from every other coastal community around them because they had spent centuries learning to build inside a volcano.